Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers in its monthly author showcase. I'm your host, Mark Miller. Author DV Berkom is visiting with us this month at the Bremerton Kitsap Access Television Studios. So how are you doing this week?
I'm doing very well, thank you. And thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm glad you could come here. My understanding is you're writing in the thriller genre, I guess you'd call it. And you've been writing for a while, as you can tell by you've got at least 4 books up here. So how did you actually begin your career as a writer?
Well, I've always written most of my life, probably since I was about 7. I had a story back then about the joys of housework, which was quite tongue-in-cheek. So, yeah, and I just do short stories for family and friends up to that point. When I graduated from college with a BA in political science, I was sick to death of academia, of writing reports, of writing anything. And so I decided the best thing to do would be to move to Mexico and live on a sailboat. So I
got to ask, where at in Mexico?
San Carlos and Guaymas. So that started quite a few years of moving around and trying various jobs and just basically experiencing life, which was a really good thing for being a writer. In 2005, I found that I had some extra time on my hands, and so I've always wanted to read books with strong female protagonists in the same kind of vein as like Jason Bourne, James Bond, that kind of thing. And growing up, I couldn't find that kind of woman character to relate to. So I thought, I'm going to write that, or I'm going to try. So I wrote my first book. It took a year. And of course, you know, you have that great feeling of accomplishment when you write that first book. And you think, oh, it's going to be a bestseller. They're going to love it, you know. So you send it out and you get the rejections and you just go, maybe I have to work on this a little bit, you know, do a little craft working. So I spent the next few years learning craft, writing more books, not publishing, not trying to get published, just learning it, learning the business. I joined a couple of writers groups, that kind of thing. And it was really one of the best things I ever did, was to take that time and kind of step back and learn how to write, you know, learn 3-act structure, learn character descriptions, how to get conflict into your novel, that kind of thing. Because I love writing conflict. If you're a writer, writing conflict is key. And I love action scenes and all that. And so when I finished that, or then in 2010, a friend suggested that I write a prequel to the book that I was working on at the time. And that turned out to be Bad Spirits, which is in this is 4 novellas in one book.
And that's the prequel?
Yeah, okay. It's got the prequel in it, yeah, Kate Jones' thriller series, and she was my first series. I submitted to an online publisher. They accepted, and it sold really well. And this is in 2010, when it was just starting to really kick off. And I realized that independent publishing was starting to really kick off, and I really liked the idea of doing everything myself. So I asked for my rights back for Bad Spirits, and they gave them back to me, and then I started uploading my own books and starting my own company, because I've had businesses in the past, small businesses in the past. And so I haven't looked back since then.
So I have to ask you, they actually let you have your rights back? Because I've got quite a few of friends of mine who have been, one of them in particular is published for quite a while, and he's trying to get some of his memoirs for the military and stuff like that. He's trying to get that back from a major book publisher, and they just won't give them back. So
some of them won't. I mean, it depends on the contract. It depends on your relationship with the publisher. I had a really good relationship with this publisher. And there wasn't any problem when I explained what I wanted to do. And yeah, I haven't looked back since. It's been fabulous.
So with this, you like really strong female characters. So let me throw this from the aspect of course, being a guy. Because I've been told, when you start talking about male, female protagonists and stuff like this, I've actually had some people say, well, you're a guy, you can't write a female protagonist, you don't understand this. So when you're writing for a female protagonist, and she's a strong woman, you know, like I guess one of your characters is a female assassin or former assassin, things like this. What would you see as a difference between when you write and what you would say a guy's writing about a male protagonist, or is there a difference?
That's a really good question. I've written blog posts about how reading some male writers, when they write women, strong women, I just want to throw the book across the room because it just doesn't ring true to me. But there are several male writers who do very well with women, and usually it's the male writers who have strong female either wives or mothers or whatever in their lives, and they're good at that. I don't like the ones with the high heels and the short skirts and they have to look great when they're doing things. That's why, like with Lane Basso, I make sure that she wears, good shoes, and she's sexy, but she's practical.
If you have a female protagonist, I guess, because I'm one of those guys that's tried writing about women. So if a woman is, like you said, a strong woman, but at the same time she knows she is good looking, and she does not have a problem with being attracted to the male sex.
Right.
Okay. How do you think that a woman would write different like that than a guy would write in that type of a scene?
Well, I think, when you're a writer, all writers put themselves into other
Right.
people's heads, so it just depends on your ability to put yourself into somebody else's shoes. It's empathy, and it's also knowing the opposite sex very well. I grew up, most of my best friends in high school were guys, and so I really got to know how men think, at least at that point, teenagers, and then later on, they stayed good friends of mine. So I think it's just your experience and whether you can convey that. So I think that men can write women, and I think women can write men. I think that you just have to be really aware of what you're doing and how you're having your character come across. Not have that cliche male or female.
There was, it's a French character that was started out, I think, actually a comic book character, and they wrote some books on her. She was a spy. They wrote it back in the 50s and 60s, and the character's name was Modesty Blaze.
Somebody told me that Lane's like that. That Lane reminds her
I was going to ask you
of
that.
that.
They made a horrible movie about the books that really was horrible. But the books themselves and the comic strip, it was a French comic strip, and then they wrote some actual literature books on it. She was, like you said, this strong woman, excellent with martial arts and all those other things, but she knew how to use her sexuality as a weapon. And so would you say that your female assassin character, or former assassin character, she learned how to do that?
Not to really use her sexuality as a weapon, but to use her sexuality to use.
Okay.
I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, she does. She's very capable in using weapons and
Exactly.
fighting hand-to-hand combat.
Have you gotten any criticism from anybody for the way that you're portraying your strong female character?
Not a bit. In fact,
Okay,
I'm getting
good.
the opposite. I'm getting. I have probably 40% of my readers. I've taken polls and
Yeah.
things on my email list and
Cool.
all that. 40% of my readers are male, and they love both Lane and Kate because they're strong women, but they still have. They're still human. They're not superhuman. They're not. I can do everything.
Oh, yeah.
So.
And
Yeah.
I think, like I said, from a male's point of view, it's that fine line we're trying to do that balancing act is, okay, we don't want to make the stereotypical, like you said, woman that's going to burst into tears every 5 seconds, but at the same time you don't want to turn him into this completely non-feeling individual. I call it the Xeno the warrior princess.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think that there's that tendency right now that, well, a woman's got to be strong, she's got to be a Xena, and I'm going, but that's not, we don't want to make everybody a male, female Hercules, I guess.
Right, it's not realistic.
Right.
I like to write realistic fiction, as realistic as I can. I mean, of course, there's going to be some fantastic stuff in there, and really, you got to be a little bit over the top with the bad guys, and and that kind of
exactly.
thing. But I try to keep it as down to earth as I can, because I don't like reading about women that are perfect and can do everything and don't ever get hurt or don't have failings, or I want a flawed character. I love flawed characters. So.
And when you're talking about, like you said, the flawed characters, and I agree. I think that we have too many people. Sometimes when you write thrillers, it is all about action and stereotypes, as opposed to that interaction between two human beings, whatever gender they are, and everything. I find it fascinating that you wound up self-publishing and doing everything yourself. Now, do you also publish other people's books?
No,
So
I haven't done that yet, and it's so much work. I just don't know if I can. I mean, it would be fun, I think, but then my writing would suffer. And right now, I love writing, and I don't want to take any more time away from that than I already have.
Okay. You write in a genre because you're writing action, and you've got an assassin and things like this. Do you have any? You ever an assassin yourself? I mean, do you have any background like that?
I'm afraid I'd have to kill you if I told you that.
Okay. So, but I had a fairly extensive law enforcement background, so I used that. But what type of background did you do, or what type of research did you have to do to be able to develop, like you said, a character who is not somebody that you would normally, yourself in your normal life, would deal with?
Well, I watch a lot of movies. I read a lot of books.
Okay.
I have a lot of contacts in the law enforcement world, in special operations, in, there are just amazing amounts of I have contacts that I can draw on, which is so awfully cool. I just love it.
Yeah.
I also train with weapons. Former police officer, detective, who teaches me, how to use the guns and how to fire. I've fired just about every gun you can think of, and it's been really fun.
Do you have a favorite?
I really, really liked the 45. The weight was.
Oh, you mean the old slab side Colt 45 semi-automatic?
No. Well, it was a semi-auto. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It just the weight. It just felt really good in my hand. So.
The only reason I bring that up is I was a firearms instructor for years, so I'm a gun nut. So whenever somebody starts writing about guns, I'm like you. You cringe when it's completely and utterly unrealistic. You're going, that's not what happens. And so,
or they say the smell of cordite was thick in the air, and you're like, wait a minute. Wait, that's World War II. Don't use cordite. Please don't use cordite.
Well, they act like everything's still black powder. Yeah.
Right.
Or you shoot somebody with black powder, and they don't realize all that.
What happens?
What happens then too, And so it's that realism, and it sounds like you've done a lot of research, and I think you would agree that if you're going to be an author, you'd better do some decent research. You can have the best character in the world, but if you put them completely in unrealistic situations, people that are in that type of career field are going to look at you and go, huh?
They're going to throw that book away or throw it across the room. I had a couple in my early days. I had a couple of oh crap moments that I put in a book, but being independently published, when somebody brought it to my attention, I was able to change it in the book, which is so nice. I mean, I think if you're traditionally published, it's really hard to get that to happen. So, and I've learned along the way, and I've like I said, I've met so many great people that have been, and most readers are really helpful. There are some that are, just want to show that they know something, but most of them are really helpful, and they want you to succeed. They want you to do it right. So I just make sure I ask as many questions as I possibly can. And there are times that you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And so I try to get rid of that not knowing as much as I can. I really want to know as much as I can about what I'm writing about, just so people don't get taken out of the story. I want them to stay in that story.
Like you said, they don't throw the book across the room and start screaming and yelling and things like that. So because you're writing in a fairly, I would say, violent, crass, under, bad environment type of stories. In other words, we're not talking about puppies and bunnies and stuff like this. No. How do you deal with dealing with like quote unquote bad language? I mean, because I've actually had people look at some of my books and they go, oh, you put a bad word in there. But that's how people talk sometimes. So how do you deal with that?
Well, and I'm sure being from law enforcement background, you've heard it all.
Yeah, just about.
Yeah, so that is one thing that has been a little bit of a recurring theme in my work, is that I do use a lot of salty language. I work with, I'm writing about assassins. I'm writing about Mexican drug cartel members. I'm writing about, the underbelly of the criminal world, and plus, I use profanity all the time. So I can't help it. It's when you're writing that dialogue, it just kind of comes out. And Serial Date, this one right here, has a lot of profanity. It has a ton of F-bombs in it, and I don't know, it just came out that way. So I did tone it down just a little bit in the rest of the series.
And this is a plot literally about a date gone bad, or?
Serial Date is about, it's about it came from a seriously twisted dream I had one night.
Okay,
tell
me about it.
Yeah, it was
We got all afternoon.
It was a reality show. I can't believe I dreamed this, but it was a reality show with featuring serial killers and the women who want to date them. So basically, Serial Date is the name of a hit show, where these ex-cons are acting like serial killers, and the women are vying for dates. And then a real serial killer comes on the scene and decides that he wants to change things. So that's why I made up Lane, because I thought, well, who could go against a serial killer? And I thought, well, a former assassin. Wouldn't that be great? I mean, because then it's kind of that question of who's worse.
Oh, yeah.
Because they both kill people, but, and then how do you make an assassin someone that you like?
Yeah, turn him into a hero.
A likable person. And so apparently from readers' responses, I did make her a very likable person. So, but yeah, I wanted to get that whole serial killer and assassin thing going.
Well, then part of that, since this specific character you're talking about, when you say she's a former assassin, get a little bit details, because now I'm interested. It's why did she stop being an assassin?
Well, and that's in the prequel that I wrote last year, A Killing Truth.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting because through the series, I'd never thought about writing a prequel. So I just kind of threw things in as I went and didn't think how it would work as a whole for a prequel. And when I was writing the prequel, it was probably the hardest book I ever wrote, because I had to go back in all the other books and make sure that I was keeping all that straight in that. So she ends up doing something that her boss makes her do, something that she doesn't realize at the time that she's doing, and she has to just give it up. That's it.
Good.
So.
I'd say that most authors that I've met, and I think you probably talked to a lot of them, when you become kind of an entity in the literary world, you get a little bit of a drive. Something is kind of driving you a little bit. So when you look down into the future, what are some of your goals and stuff that you're looking for?
My main goal is to entertain my readers. I mean, if I don't entertain the readers, I've failed. I've completely failed. If you don't have readers, you don't have an occupation in writing. You don't have a job. It's so much more important to me to make the readers happy. My readers have gotten to the point where they expect clear, concise writing with not very much description, because that's what I like to read. So I don't put a lot of description in my books. I set the scene, and that's pretty much it, and then I get into the action and the dialogue and stuff, because I love action scenes. I love to write them. And they're also, I kind of have this scorched earth idea of get them in, get them out, and leave them wanting more. And when a person picks up my book, that's what they're going to get. Like I said, there's a lot of profanity and there's a lot of violence in them. So but I try to make that really obvious in the description and all that. So the person who doesn't like that doesn't pick up the book. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
So.
It's definitely, they're adult thrillers.
Very adult.
They're
yes.
not the old. When I was growing up, you had the mysteries and stuff like that were kind of called thrillers, like you had Ellery Queen and some other stuff like that.
Right.
Then, of course, you go back farther enough in the early 50s, and Mickey Spillane came along.
Love them, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that people don't understand, it was right after World War II. He was a World War II vet. When he started writing that way, with that, just shooting people in the stomach and stuff like that, but he goes, you don't do that, But that kind of, I think, started to change things. And from what you're saying, in a way, you've kind of kind of like he did, but with your own take. In other words, you're definitely you like the action, you're looking at the underbelly of it, but at the same time, you're trying to develop a character that somebody will actually identify with.
Exactly. Yeah. I try very hard to make both of my characters relatable. Kate Jones is more of an every woman, I guess, and she makes a big mistake in Bad Spirits at the beginning. She falls for the wrong guy. He's a Mexican drug lord. She doesn't realize it until it's too late, and she can't get away. And so then she makes a decision to escape with a boatload of his money, and that sets this tone for the whole series. I mean, she's running from him. She's fighting back. She's, you know, it's a really profound effect that this one decision has on her life. So she's more of an every woman, and then Lane is, of course, the former assassin. So. More professional.
So with that, and also the book you were talking about with the serial killers, do you think, now we're going to go to psychology again, do you think that sometimes that women are attracted to the bad boy?
Oh, yeah.
And so you, to a certain extent that is sometimes comes into your books.
So in Serial Date, that was one of the things I really played off of. It's got a lot of satire in it.
Yeah.
And like reality shows, it's a send-up of reality shows. It's a send-up of politicians. It's a send-up of the serial killer genre. And I have the women vying for the serial killer's attention on the TV show. But it's also, they want to be on TV, and they, you know, it's that whole psychological thing. But yeah, women forever have been attracted to bad boys, absolutely, and men have been attracted to the same kind of woman.
Oh yeah. Have you? And once again, have you ever had anybody, when you've examined that failing of humanity, have you ever caught any criticism like, "Oh my God, you're making us look too bad," or something like that?
Not yet. No. I have had people write me and say, "I love reality shows. Why would you do this about it?" And I'd write back and go, "I don't. I'm sorry."
Well, they said that they love reality shows.
Yeah, and that's fine. It's you know, it's entertainment. It's all entertainment, but it's my take on it. So.
We're, as part of Claw, we're looking forward to the future, and we're doing things like Whaling Days and the Blackberry Festivals and things like that in the future. And Peter Stockel was telling me that you might want to try to become involved with some of those activities and everything, so we could get you down there at the booth with the books. And,
oh, that'd be fun. I'd love
and
that.
Everything, and you know, and help us tackle people walking by. And things like
Tackling is involved. That's good.
Yeah, so that's what I have to do. See, Peter knows half of Kitsap County. So I have to actually went out and tackle people to get them to talk to me with my books. So anyways, that's kind of where we're at. So do you have any other plans in the next few months to try to, I guess, market your books or get your writing out there some more?
I do. I have a new book coming out at the end of July. It's called The Last Deception, and it's part of the Lane Basso series, the former assassin series.
Oh, cool.
And I'm having a book signing at a really fabulous little shop in Manette called Elixir Fixer, and it's owned by a couple of friends of mine, Jim and Athena Higgins, and the shop itself is just fabulous. It's a really cool place. Anyway, they have a venue in the back, and so I'm going to have a book signing on the first Friday in August, so it'll be August 4th, and there'll be more information on my website as the date approaches for times and things. Okay,
and so we will, of course, Magic of Television will put your website up on this broadcast and everything, so everybody can get a hold of you. Is there any other easy way to get a hold of you?
Just go to dvberkom. It's that's my website, and it has a way to you can email me, you can Facebook friend me, you can Twitter me, you can do whatever you want.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for being here. It's been quite interesting and entertaining, because then we can get this long discussion of the whole thriller genre that we just did, which I really find enjoying and everything. So, is there anything else you'd like to leave out there to the public in general, and to the actual individual who wants to become a writer? Well, realize when you're starting out that it's going to take you a lot of work. You got to learn the craft. You need to spend some time. It's just like any kind of it's like being a carpenter or
or a journeyman electrician or something. You need to learn the craft so that you know what kind of rules you can break, and you know how to work the system. Like I said before, I didn't know the first time I wrote a book. I wrote the book, but I read it now, and there's no real 3-act structure. There's no real structure. It's characters, and it's something happening to the character.
Yeah.
It's not the actual character doesn't have the agency in making things happen.
Right.
So learn all you can about the business. Learn all you can about writing. Write a couple of books before you put your work out there, and you'll thank me later for that, because if you put up the first thing that you write, or something that you think is great and your mom thinks is great, and you haven't had it professionally edited, you really need to have it edited, because right now, if you put something out there that isn't professionally edited, there's so much competition that you'll be starting here, and you want to be starting here. And so that's one of the most important things. And have other people read it and give you feedback and all that kind of stuff. And then learn how to market. Marketing is huge. Even if you're traditionally published, you still have to market your work. But also remember, it's going to be one of the most rewarding occupations that you ever do.
Okay, well, I'd like to thank all of our viewers for tuning into Bremerton Kitsap Access Television and viewing the Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers production. Of course, we'll be broadcasting it every Saturday this coming month at 6 p.m. so the public can take a look at it. And of course, you'll be able to watch yourself on camera then also.
Oh, joy.
I know, oh, joy. I hope everyone has a pleasant evening and a productive and fascinating week. And so until next Saturday, I'm Mark Miller with Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers in conjunction with Bremerton Kitsap Access Television. Good night.